All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about something we've all felt, that confusing gap between what people say and what they actually do. We're going to get to the truth that's hiding behind the words.
You know that feeling, right? It's like a kind of whiplash. You listen to what they're saying, you trust their explanations, you believe in their good intentions, and yet, over and over, you end up feeling like you missed something huge. It's not your fault, you're not naive. It's just that nobody ever really teaches us how human behavior actually works.
And this is where it gets really clear. Someone tells you they care, but you can feel them pulling away. They promise to have your back, but then they're nowhere to be found when things get tough. They say they value honesty, but they run from any conversation that's even a little bit difficult. These aren't just little mix-ups, they are clues to a much deeper truth. And that's what we're going to unpack.
To get there, we're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at the performance we all put on every day. Then we'll pinpoint exactly where the truth starts to leak out. After that, we'll learn how to develop the mindset of a calm observer. And finally, we'll put it all together so you can apply this clarity in your own life.
So let's start with a really big idea. A lot of our social life is basically a performance. People are playing roles they think they need to play to fit in, to get approval, and just to feel like they belong. Now, this isn't usually about being fake or manipulative. It's more of a survival instinct. We learn really early on that if we want to be accepted, we have to act a certain way. So we do. We put on a mask for work, a different one for our friends, another for our family. We choose being safe over being real. The only problem is when we forget the mask is even there. And here it is. This is probably the most important point we're going to talk about. Words are carefully chosen. They're filtered. They're designed to project a certain image. They're the script. But behavior? Well, behavior is the unconscious confession. It's the truth that slips out when someone isn't carefully managing how they look. Okay, so if words are just the performance, where should we be looking for the truth? That brings us right to part 2. We're going to zero in on 3 specific channels where a person's real character shows up, a lot of times without them even knowing it. These 3 things are basically your map to seeing things clearly. First up, we have recurring patterns in their behavior. Then, we've got their spontaneous emotional reactions. And finally, we'll look at what's not being said, the surprisingly powerful information you can get from silence. Let's kick things off with patterns. See, a single action could just be a one-off thing, but a pattern is a habit. It's the truth on repeat. This is why you have to stop getting swept up in the intensity of someone's words and promises and just start watching for consistency in their actions. Over time, that consistency, or the lack of it, tells you everything you need to know. And this is the fundamental difference. Words give you a great story right now. Patterns show you the reality over the long haul. Words come from intention. They show you who a person wants to be. But patterns, they come from conditioning. They show you who that person has actually practiced being. And that's why a pattern is always more honest than an excuse. The second place the truth leaks out is through emotional reactions. And these are like gold mines of information, mainly because they're almost never planned. They just erupt before the logical brain can step in and filter them. Every time you see a strong emotional reaction, you're seeing a defense mechanism in action, and it points you directly to what that person is trying to protect inside. Just think about it for a second. When someone's anger seems way out of proportion, it's not about strength. It's about feeling a loss of control. When someone gets super defensive, they're not protecting the truth. They're protecting a fragile ego. And when someone just suddenly shuts down and withdraws, that's not indifference. That's usually a deep-seated fear of being exposed or getting into a conflict. These reactions show you the person behind the performance. Okay, so we know where to look. But the question is, how do you look without getting sucked into all the drama? This brings us to the most important skill of all, learning how to be calm inside. Because real clarity isn't about analyzing other people. It starts with managing yourself. Here's the truth. You absolutely cannot see a situation clearly if you're emotionally tangled up in it. The key to reading people isn't to match their energy or argue with their intensity. It's to take a step back, create a little emotional distance, and just notice. See their reaction as data, not as a personal attack. And here are 4 really practical steps to help you do that. First, when you're hit with an intense reaction from someone, just pause. Don't say anything. Don't act. Second, Notice the trigger. What set them off? And just as important, what is it setting off inside of you? Third, and this is the big one, separate their reaction from you. Remind yourself, their emotion is about their inner world. And finally, adjust. Don't try to fix them, just use their behavior as information to adjust your own boundaries. And this leads us to the hidden power of silence. When you can just sit comfortably in silence, you give other people the space they need to reveal themselves. You're not pushing them, you're not pulling answers out of them, you're just watching. This saves your emotional energy and puts you in a position of quiet control, because the person who is most comfortable with silence is always the one who sees the most. Now for the fun part. Let's pull all of this together and turn this theory into a real practical skill. Because it's one thing to understand these ideas, but it's something else entirely to use them when the stakes are high. This is all about turning observation into genuine, unshakable confidence. And honestly, there is no better training ground for this than the workplace. This is a place where being able to spot untrustworthy or unreliable people isn't just a nice-to-have emotional skill, it's a professional necessity. Your career could literally depend on it.
So let's run through some classic red flags you'll see at work. That person who's quick to take credit but even quicker to deflect blame, that's not confidence, that's deep insecurity. Your strategy? Document your interactions. The coworker who loves to gossip, they're showing you they can't be trusted. Your move? Keep a professional distance. What about the person who's incredibly kind to the boss but rude to the intern? Their kindness is a tool, not a part of their character. And that person who gets angry at any kind of feedback? That's a fragile ego. Your best bet is just to lower your expectations and not get into it with them. Notice something here? None of these strategies are about changing the other person. They're all about how you choose to respond.
And this really brings us to the final, most important point of all. Real power isn't about being the loudest person in the room or having the most influence. True power is the quiet, solid clarity you get from steady, calm observation. It's the freedom that comes from no longer being confused or manipulated or emotionally drained by other people's behavior. In the end, seeing people for who they really are isn't some kind of superpower. It's a discipline. It's a choice you make to pay more attention to the evidence of their behavior than to the stories you wish were true. This kind of clarity protects your peace, it protects your energy. So the only question left is, how are you going to use it?